Turkish Defence Minister Hulusi Akar has told his US counterpart that Ankara will end its work with the United States on establishing a peace corridor in northeastern Syria if Washington stalls on the issue. Ankara has accused the US of moving too slowly in setting up the safe zone. Turkey is also calling on the US to end its support for the YPG terror group. Meanwhile, Washington has expressed concern that Turkey may soon launch a military operation into northeastern Syria. A Wall Street Journal article cites US officials as saying a clash between Turkish forces and YPG terrorists would prompt the White House to pull US troops from the region to avoid conflict. Now, for more on this, let's talk to Matthew Brodsky, a senior fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy. He's also a Middle East expert. Thanks so much for your time, Matthew. Now, in this Washington Post article, it states that if a widespread incursion of Turkish forces were to happen, the US would have no choice but to pull out their troops in order to avoid a conflict with a NATO ally. But what are the main sticking points for the US here as to why they'd pull their troops out?
Well, look, I think this is the kind of rhetoric that we've heard from Turkey before, that they plan to come in or plan to invade and to set up their own type of safe zone. Washington really sees that as much of a land grab on Turkey's part. So I don't think that it's necessarily something that would be in Turkey's interest to do either. Now, we should also remember that the U.S. policy currently is to remain in the area. So there isn't there could be a leak for someone trying to say that this is what the United States would do if Turkey were to actually attack and come into the area. But there's nothing that actually indicates that Turkey would in fact do so. Our military is frankly aware of what is happening around the area. The U.S. is focused on Iran. It's focused on ensuring that ISIS does not reconstitute itself. And then it's also working toward a UN Security Council Resolution 2234 to have an actual political process to end this. Turkey coming into northeastern Syria would in fact complicate all of these issues.
Especially given the fact that those few US troops that are left in Syria are trying to finish up the fight against Daesh. So what could that mean potentially for this fight if those US troops were taken out of Syria?
Well, see, if it goes out of there, it hampers every part of what would be a good strategy, including for Turkey's benefit. Of course, you don't want to have Iran open up all the land corridors from Tehran all the way through to the Mediterranean Sea. That, of course, would be happening. And you would see a much wider conflict. There would be a land grab between Iran and Russia and Assad. And of course, it's quite clear that since Turkey wants to have its own territory carved out like it has in Idlib, but it wants that in northeast Syria, it would then rekindle a new phase in the civil war, which again doesn't work to anyone's benefit. It's of course interesting that Erdogan has put out a very ambitious plan for what he would like to do with the safe zone, which would create, frankly, nicer housing development in cities and towns than any other place inside of the Middle East. So I think we should return to being a bit more realistic, and that's what the United States is doing. It's staying the course. It's not easy, but it's what needs to occur.
Okay, well, we'll have to leave it there for the time being. Matthew, thank you very much for your time. Matthew Brodsky there. Now, the Malayan government has revised